The drama surrounding the WNBA has reached a boiling point, and this time, it's not a game, not a headline, but a full-blown civil war shaking the league's foundation. At the center of it all stands Cathy Engelbert, the once celebrated commissioner whose iron grip on the WNBA is slipping faster than anyone could have imagined. Her legacy of progress, growth, and modernization has been swallowed by chaos, conflict, and humiliation. Because when the storm became too loud to ignore, Adam Silver, the NBA's commissioner, the so-called Thanos of basketball governance, stepped out of the shadows and did the unthinkable. He took control. What followed wasn't just a rescue. It was a reckoning. For months, tension had been brewing behind closed doors. Players were restless, owners were losing patience, and Engelbart's once solid image as a reformer was beginning to crack. The collective bargaining negotiations and something meant to unify the league had instead become a battlefield. Players like Nneka Ogwumike, Aja Wilson, and Napheesa Collier began voicing frustration, while whispers grew that some stars were already preparing to break away. Even the media sensed it. A storm was coming. And then Adam Silver spoke. His words carried the calm authority of someone who didn't just run a league, he ran the league. It's unfortunate, he said carefully, that at a time when the WNBA should be celebrating its incredible finals, we're instead talking about division. Cathy Engelbert has presided over 6 years of tremendous growth, but we need to sit down and find common ground. On the surface, it sounded diplomatic, respectful, but to insiders, it was a dagger wrapped in silk. Because beneath that polished tone, Silver's message was unmistakable. The WNBA could no longer fix itself. For Engelbart, that moment was shattering. She had built her tenure on proving the WNBA could thrive without leaning on the NBA's influence. Independence was her banner. But now that independence had turned into isolation. Silver's intervention, though framed as assistance, stripped her authority in an instant. And behind the scenes, she was livid. Sources say the atmosphere inside league headquarters was electric with tension. Engelbart felt blindsided, furious that Silver had gone public before even consulting her. She lashed out, accusing her own executives of leaking internal disputes and sabotaging her reputation. Witnesses described her pacing the conference room, slamming reports onto the table, her composure cracking under the weight of frustration. "They're making it look like I can't handle my own league," she reportedly snapped. It was more than anger. It was humiliation. The woman once praised for composure and diplomacy had been publicly overshadowed by her NBA counterpart. And while Engelbart fought to contain the damage, her critics grew bolder. The players were losing faith fast. Napheesa Collier's canceled meeting with the commissioner became the flashpoint, the moment that revealed how deep the mistrust had run. Collier had been scheduled to meet with Engelbart to discuss the ongoing negotiations, but she pulled out at the last minute. Officially, it was a scheduling issue. Unofficially, it was a message. The players no longer respected the commissioner's leadership. That single decision sent ripples across the league. To Engelbart, it was betrayal, a slap in the face. To the players, it was self-preservation. The power dynamic had shifted, and Engelbart's attempts to spin the story only made things worse. The canceled meeting became a symbol of disconnect, arrogance, and control. Social media erupted with speculation. Was Collier standing up to a commissioner who refused to listen? Or had Engelbart pushed too hard, too long, until her players walked away for good? Meanwhile, Silver watched from a distance, his patience thinning. He had hoped Engelbart could regain control, but the optics were damning. Sponsors were worried. Media outlets were circling. The finals, the WNBA's moment of glory, had been swallowed by controversy. That's when Silver realized this wasn't just a WNBA problem, it was an NBA problem. And the parent league wasn't going to sit idle while its sister organization imploded. The timing couldn't have been worse for Engelbart. Team owners, once her strongest supporters, began questioning her judgment. Behind closed doors, they whispered about her inability to manage the escalating conflict. Some accused her of being too lenient with the players, while others said she had alienated them completely. One executive summed it up bluntly. Cathy tried to please everyone and ended up pleasing no one. Silver's involvement only made it worse. The moment he spoke, owners started bypassing Engelbart entirely, reaching out to the NBA office instead. It was the corporate equivalent of mutiny. Her authority wasn't just challenged, it was ignored. Every email, every meeting, every delay reminded her that the power she once commanded now belonged to someone else. But the greatest threat to Engelbart didn't come from the boardroom. It came from Unrivaled, the new player-founded league created by Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart. What began as a small off-season project suddenly turned into a full-blown challenge to the WNBA's dominance. Engelbart saw it as rebellion disguised as innovation, and she wasn't entirely wrong. Unrivaled represented freedom, financial, creative, and personal. For the players, it was a chance to shape their own future. For Engelbart, it was an existential threat. She reportedly pushed to include restrictions in the new collective bargaining agreement that would prevent players from joining rival leagues. But that move backfired spectacularly. Fans accused her of gatekeeping. Players accused her of hypocrisy. After all, WNBA athletes had been playing overseas for years. Why suddenly draw the line at a league run by women for women? The backlash was swift and brutal. By trying to protect the WNBA, Engelbart had made herself the villain. The optics were brutal. The players were the revolutionaries. She was the tyrant. And Silver? He was the peacemaker, the voice of reason in a storm of pride and ego. Every time he spoke, engagement soared. Every time Engelbart appeared, the silence was deafening. Inside the league, morale began to crumble. Staffers described confusion over who to answer to, the commissioner or Silver's newly formed oversight committee. Players, meanwhile, rallied behind Silver's calm leadership. Even fans began calling him the real commissioner, a title that cut deeper than any headline. Engelbart, once the symbol of progress, had become the cautionary tale of what happens when leadership loses trust. And yet, behind the scenes, she refused to give up. Every public appearance became an act of defiance, a performance of control she no longer possessed. She smiled for cameras, spoke about unity, and praised the league's growth, even as everyone around her knew the truth. The WNBA had been saved, but not by her. When the dust finally settled, the picture was clear. Adam Silver hadn't just prevented a lockout, he had rewritten the hierarchy of women's basketball. His presence reassured sponsors, steadied owners, and gave players a sense of fairness they'd been craving. But it also came with a cost. The WNBA's independence, the very thing Engelbart fought so hard to protect, was gone. The league now existed under Silver's shadow, its autonomy quietly absorbed into the NBA's structure. For Engelbart, the fall was both personal and poetic. She had entered her role as a visionary, a trailblazer determined to lift women's basketball into the mainstream. But the same fire that fueled her rise eventually burned her out. Her downfall wasn't caused by corruption or scandal, but by the slow erosion of trust from players, owners, and finally, from the very system she helped build. Adam Silver's intervention will go down in history as the moment that saved the WNBA from collapse, but it will also mark the moment it lost something far more fragile, its sense of self. The league may have survived, but the scars of this internal war run deep. And for Cathy Engelbert, the silence that follows may be louder than the chaos that came before. Because in the end, this wasn't just a story about a commissioner losing control. It was about what happens when power, pride, and progress collide. Adam Silver acted, Cathy Engelbert hesitated. And in that hesitation, her legacy slipped away. Now the only question left is whether the WNBA can truly rebuild, not just its structure, but its soul. Can it stand on its own again? Or has Adam Silver's rescue forever tied its fate to the league that once promised to let it shine? If you're following this saga, what do you think? Did Adam Silver save the WNBA? Or expose it? And was Cathy Engelbert unfairly undermined? Or did she bring this downfall upon herself? Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the biggest stories shaping the world of sports.